Andy, you are totally in deep thought. What's going on?
Mikey,
thinking something.
The truth is, for the past week, I've been thinking about that inverse.
The inverse square law?
Yeah, that thing. I've been trying to figure that thing out, man. Have you? Do you know what
Look,
I'm talking
you
about?
gotta go stack back and think lighten up and shoot style.
I'm trying, man. But look, I mean,
Inverse
this is
square law.
what I know. This is what they taught me in school. They were like, read this.
You mean this thing right here?
Yeah.
Yes, this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes no sense to anybody. That doesn't even make sense to me, and I'm like a scientific genius. But look, think of depth of field.
Okay.
What's happening with depth of field, right? Let's say that I'm taking a picture of this, and the closer I am to my subject,
Yeah, the less depth of field you're gonna have. So you're gonna have like an area of like this.
right,
much.
right. So I might just focus the tip of that. But if I move
Okay.
back here, what happens?
So you're gonna have a
I've got a
greater
larger
area.
depth of field. So how does that relate to
The inverse square law.
the inverse square law?
Oh man,
With light.
You know what? I got an idea. We're changing the name. Forget about the inverse square law. It's gonna
What?
be called.
It's not inverse
depth-
square law?
No, not anymore. Depth of flash exposure. That's the only way I'm gonna be able to learn it.
So
It kind of
as
works
I'm
like
visually
that.
looking at depth of field,
Yeah.
depth of flash exposure.
Absolutely, because it's the same exact thing. The closer I am to my subject,
If this is the light,
yeah. If this is our light source now, I'm gonna have the less depth of flash exposure. The further away my light source is gonna be from my model, the larger my depth of flash exposure.
you know what?
That's awesome.
It totally makes sense. You know what? Let's draw it out so everybody can see it.
Okay, let's go do it. Depth of flash exposure, Mikey. Here we go.
Take 153.
I know. I can't draw, guys, so I apologize.
All right, so there's our 28-inch Westcott Apollo, one of our main light sources.
Absolutely. And here's what happens. We fire off this Apollo, and the light will travel something like this. Okay?
Awesome.
You like it?
I love it.
Estimated. Okay. So when we have our model really close to our main light source,
Let's say that the model is properly exposed at f11
and
within about a foot. So
absolutely, we have about a foot for the model to move around,
that's
and
right.
she will be properly exposed.
So if you got a fidgety model, a dancing model, and she steps out of that 1 foot range, her exposure is going to change.
Yep, it's going to drop one stop, okay? Because the further the light travels, the less light hits. So our exposure is going to be f8, but our depth of flash exposure, which is the area the model has to move around, is increased.
You're essentially increasing that range by doubling the distance.
Estimated, approximately.
Approximately.
Don't whip out your iPhone app with your depth of
with
field
your
calculation.
inverse
And
square law.
don't do that, okay?
And by the way, what the heck is this depth of flash exposure terminology? This is something that's brand new. Did you just make this up out of thin air?
Yes, I did. But it works great. It works exactly like depth of field for your camera.
Okay, so what happens now? We got this fidgety model. She's properly exposed within this f8 range, and she moves out again.
Again, she's going to move out. So what happens is we lose yet another stop of light. We're now down to f5.6. Okay?
And our distance?
It's not distance. It's depth of flash exposure.
Depth of flash. I'm
has
starting to get it
now
now.
doubled again. So we're now at 4 feet that the model can now move around with correct exposure.
And that could be really good, say, for example, if you're taking a picture of a group of people at a wedding.
Yep, a group of people at a wedding or just a group of your family.
Right,
or
because they're
whatever
going
it
to be
is.
properly exposed from one side of the photo to the other. If you had them in the first two quadrants between f11 and f8, you're going to get two different exposures from one side of the picture to the other.
Unless they're really skinny people. But, okay. So the last one, let's just fill this up just for giggles. She moves out of this one more time
So you're going to increase your depth of flash exposure.
by doubling it again. Although I think that if,
You're opening up your aperture to f4 to get it properly exposed.
Yeah.
One stop of light.
even though if she's fidgeting over here, she's probably pretty much running away, buddy. So f4, now you have 8 feet for the model to move around, and you have correct exposure. So this is very cool for group shots. Another very cool thing that you could do is you can actually control the background or the light that's hitting
That's
the background.
right, background control.
Yeah, so for example, I'm going to put my model here. Sorry I'm going to draw all over this, guys,
Okay,
but
so
everybody
she's
saw it.
properly exposed at f11.
Right next to the flash. But my wall is like, let's say, way over here.
Okay.
This is my
So that
wall.
means that your wall is going to be roughly 2 stops less than the proper exposure of your model.
Absolutely.
So that's could be really cool. If you want your background to go dark,
Yep.
or you want it to be White
or gray.
or gray, medium gray.
Yep, that's pretty much how it's gonna work. The further the light travels.
That's a great example of depth of flash.
You like my drawing? It's gonna be on eBay. All right, depth of flash exposure. Got it? Got it.